English if that's okay with everyone. Happens to be my mother tongue, although I do speak Dutch as well. Our company is made up of people from several different countries, so if we speak Dutch, then the rest don't understand. So we have moved to English as much as possible. So Delving is a company that we started up in September of 2010. The people who started Delving, I was one of them, the co-founders. We were all members of the Europeana core team. We worked to put the first prototype online, and then we stuck with the project from that period in fall of 2008 until the summer of 2010. But in the context of working on Europeana and dealing with the challenges that we had there, for example, ingesting data from huge numbers of sources, we saw that there was a great need in the community for help in this area. For example, metadata aggregators who are trying to get their data to Europeana, they all kind of want to be mini Europeanas. They all want to have their own little search site. They all want to be able to provide for data access and search and innovation in that area. And Europeana as an organization could not help them really. It's not the kind of organization that can help. So we formed a private company to do it. Museums as well. There are lots of museums out there who don't even have a respectable online site, and if they do, they don't have reasonable search functionality. And it's also the case that if you want to provide data to Europeana, you have to have landing pages for your objects. So people are sort of obligated to get some site online to start with. Everybody in the community knows the value of having their cultural heritage information in interoperable formats, because then they can be sort of merged together and explored in a much more robust way. And there's a whole lot of cultural heritage in our mind that never sees the light of day. There are of course museums, there are galleries, there are archives and libraries, but there are also large numbers of historical societies and all sorts of smaller organizations who don't have the resources or the knowledge to get their stuff online. So there's probably the majority of really good cultural heritage information is just not seeing the light of day online. So this is one of the parts of our mission to enable them. Back in 2008, the Europeana source code base was converted to open source, released under the European public license. And we adopted it and forked it and continued on, because that's what open source is about. Since then we have rewritten most of the platform, so we're less related than we were in the beginning, but that was our start. And our idea is we're very much an open source company. That's really part of our story, and we think that resistance is futile because it's the cheapest and the smartest way to do especially cultural heritage. What we discovered basically with talking more and more with aggregators and data providers is that everybody really wants the same things. They really want the same things. They want to be able to display things on maps. They want to improve their data. They want to make it searchable online. They want facets. They want sort of like a little Europeana, but then more. So because everybody wants the same thing, and nobody has the budget to pay for that thing, our proposition is to say we can get people together to pool their resources, and we will help them build a platform that everybody can benefit from. And as a result, every new client knows that what they get out of the box is the stuff that's been developed up till now. So it gets to be more and more a compelling story. And we partner with ambitious clients to develop new features, but then those features are published and free for the next. So I think it will eventually just keep growing
As somebody who doesn't know exactly what Europeana is, could you just give a little bit more?
Yeah, Europeana is a project, I'm not exactly sure when it was set up precisely, but it was a sort of a child of the European public, or sorry, what is it, the European Library. And it's a European funded project to bring all sorts of cultural metadata together and make it searchable with digital objects online. So basically to provide a counterweight to Google, in a sense. So it's like the Europeana, or the European ambition to avoid Google domination. Yes?
Yeah, I understood that the French Prime Minister, he wanted a counterpart to American Google.
Yeah, so they put Europeana together. It has had some interesting effects in the cultural heritage domain, sort of globally, because all around Europe, I've heard from colleagues who have been in this domain for quite some time, for a decade. They said that like 8 years ago, if you went to talk to an institution and said, "Are you going to get your stuff online? Are you going to release it, online?" They would say, "Why? Why would I bother? I mean, it's ours. We've been working on it. Why should we give it away?" And that attitude has sort of, in the background, without our doing anything, has changed because of Europeana. Everybody's sort of gotten into the idea, oh, we've got data, everybody's sort of publishing it to Europeana. We should too, so we should have our stuff online. So it was, there's a change that happened that we didn't even influence, but in the end it's quite good.
But is that because of Europeana or because of the fact that Google is indexing museums?
It's because of the effort to create Europeana, I believe. It's because the fact that everybody saw that the data was moving there and making one sort of unified place to search for it all. So everybody was seeing everyone else publish data, and the big museums and stuff were doing it. So it became fashionable. It took a while, it took a number of years, but eventually it became fashionable. So now when we talk to data providers, they're just saying, oh, can you help us put our stuff online? So we don't even have to address that first question anymore, which is good. We've been busy for a while, as you can see, for about 1.5 years or a little more. So we have a few clients. We have, we're running the National Aggregator of Norway. We're starting a big project in Sweden, which is quite ambitious. We're also running the National Aggregator of the Netherlands, called DIMCON, run by the Rijksdienst Cultureel Erfgoed. And not only are there...
DIMCON?
Yeah. Digitaal Museale Collectie Nederland.
Oh, okay.
And these are national aggregators, but there's also an interest at the provincial level. Certainly in Holland, and also we're working with a group in Sweden that's not the entire nation, but it's a region. So we have also built the infrastructure for Friesland, which is continuing on and expanding. Also for Noord-Brabant, which is also probably the most ambitious province in Holland, with lots of motivation to do a really good job and to be the best. And we've recently contracted with North Holland, and we will soon be doing Zeeland. So we're sort of taking the provinces one at a time in Holland, and also expanding out to Sweden. And there's potentials in Finland and actually everywhere. I expect that once we've got a certain degree of momentum with our platform, and it becomes sufficiently full-featured and so incredibly cheap relative to a commercial offering, that the adoption should accelerate. We shall see. So this is a gathering about document freedom. So I got to thinking about what is document freedom from our point of view. And it turns out it's extremely important and central the more I think about it. Cultural heritage information is, you ask yourself, who paid for it? Who owns it? We did. We do. So if anything, if any information wants to be free, I think the information that we paid for should be free to us. So it's a quite natural thing. to want to free this stuff up. It's also not, it's data about things. So it tells you about the things that you can find in the museum or the library or the archive. It's not the thing itself in general. It, you know, can be, but it is often not. So there's a lot that certainly can be published without a second thought, nowadays at least. But from our point of view, we are developing services for clients in this domain, and we keep adding new features and exploring different ways of bringing this data alive. So for us, it's not, document freedom is not just making sure that you can get at a document, make a copy of it, or whatever. That's just the beginning for us. That does have to happen, and we build tools to sort of liberate data. I'll talk about that a little later. But our emphasis is to give these documents wings, you know, to make them actually have a better life. You know, give them real freedom. So freedom to do what? Freedom to move around. Freedom to, well, that's something to think about. It's not just free to be copied, because you want to be able to find things. You want to be able to connect things, etc. There's also a question of degree of freedom. If you've got data that's available online to sort of fetch as a whole, that's one thing. If you've got something that's searchable, that's another thing. If you've got something that in some way can be edited, that's another thing altogether. So there are many different degrees of freedom. I think that's an important issue. It's not a black and white thing. So does it have the freedom to be visited by anyone online? Can you go find this data and look it up and use it? Is it easy to find? Is it easy for a document to get some attention? And the idea is here to look at from the point of view of the document. We're talking about document freedom. Let's free the documents. Are they free to get some attention somehow? Are they free to become part of a story? Like, can you take some cultural heritage data and objects and sort of combine them together and give them some context? That's also a way to find your way into the public eye and get some attention. Are the documents free to find their place on a map? It's often very much more interesting if you can localize these documents where they are in time and in space. So can you put them in a historical context? Can you place them in time and in space? Those are freedoms, because if you imagine the big collection of vast numbers of little documents describing all sorts of objects, if it's inaccessible, then it's less free. But if it's spread out in space and time, then you really can find what you're looking for where you wouldn't have otherwise. So in effect, the documents get more use. This is a big one. The documents that we're talking about are in large numbers. It's metadata describing objects and things like that. But often what you see is people have these collections of data. They've been collecting it in their own systems, often proprietary, just a local database system. Sometimes even in an Excel spreadsheet. You know, it's a big spectrum of different levels in the data provider arena. But one interesting question is this data, is it gathering dust? Is it got cobwebs on it? Is it changing? Is it able to change? And when the numbers of documents get large and the budgets don't grow, it becomes difficult to give these objects a little attention and make sure that they are actually what they should be and what they can be. There's lots of ways to improve documents, especially this kind of document, because we're talking about, for example, a document describing a painting. If that has a description of the painter in the form of a name, that's one thing. You can search for that person's name. If you're lucky, you can search for that person's name in other documents and try to make connections. But if we're able to turn a name into a URI, then that's unambiguous, that's semantic web, and you can navigate from the one to the other. Same is true for places and times and stuff like that. There's a temporal calculus you can use to do searching if you have that information. So the point is to sort of disambiguate things. So there's a lot of potential for improvement in these documents in making them useful, making them more connected to each other. big issue which we will be attacking in the next few years. So are they free to join into a huge network of meaning? Like can we just swim in cultural heritage soon, you know, not worrying about whether you're in Holland or Germany or Scandinavia. You should be able to jump from place to place. You should be able to make connections to things. Like for example, we're talking with, we're building right now a platform for the multiple Scandinavian countries, and they're working together to help us build that. Because the borders in Scandinavia have not been the same forever. They keep changing. So they have a shared history anyway. So it makes sense to sort of consolidate that and make sure that these things can be all connected together and thereby be made more useful and more unified. So what is Delving doing? Right now, we're busy with our clients. We're collecting new clients every so often. And we have a lot of data ingestion to do. This is something that we did at Europeana on a large scale because there were like 175 different sources of data, and they're all different formats. So we started developing the first technologies for that purpose within Europeana. And then when we started delving, we continued and expanded actually a great deal in that area because we have a lot of challenges. We have a lot of data coming in from places that, and in formats that are somewhat, you know, not consistent, not interoperable. So one of our first challenges is to ingest the data and turn it into something that's useful. Useful in a couple of ways, useful for searching or useful for interoperating with other data. So if diverse sources can transform to the same data format, then you can put that all together and do some new interesting stuff. So that's one thing that we're very busy with. I can give a demonstration perhaps a little later if we have extra time of the tool that we're using for this, that we built ourselves. And what it does primarily is mapping. So you might want to map to particular display formats. You might want to map to KML, for example, to put it on a map.
Yeah, you mean with mapping you don't mean on a geo map, but
correct.
Mapping the meanings.
Yeah, because the data comes in often like as a dump from an SQL database.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got this big chunk of XML. It's divided into records and it's got lots of fields. But what do those fields actually mean? Often the field names have just been chosen somewhat arbitrarily. Sometimes they're different. Everybody records data in a different way. So we have to somehow harmonize all that. So what we're doing is we're really focusing on the standards that are out there. And the main standard, or one of the main standards in museum land is LIDO, lightweight information describing objects. In archives it's EDID. Europeana talks about EDM, but I don't know how that's developing yet. They don't really talk about it too much anymore. So this is one of the main things when you want to free these documents, because right now they're sort of squirreled away in a relational database that nobody really accesses except to adjust the data or to look at it. It's not really online. These are not liberated. So we have to sort of transform them into things that are recognizable from the outside so that these things can interoperate. A lot of people have a big interest in doing this because they've been collecting their data for years, but now it's just there in the database. And they want to publish it to the national portal, they want to publish it to Europeana, they want to build their own search sites, they want to, all sorts of things. So you have to turn it into a form that's useful. We have, from our experience at Europeana and subsequently, we have built the Delving Culture Hub, which is initially basically a Europeana portal, but we're going much, much further than that as time goes on. Of course, we have a good number of ambitions on this front, and it's also intended to be a hub in a network. So we're talking about linking together many hubs. So there'll be, a handful of hubs in Scandinavia, and they'll all be talking to each other, and they will also be able to communicate with the ones in the rest of Europe. So in a sense, the hubs store the data, but there's also this issue of perhaps connecting data in different places. So they all have to be sort of online with each other. They have to be sort of chatting. So this is the kind of infrastructure that we're working towards, to have a network of hubs and have them sort of chatting with each other all the time, literally with a chat protocol called XMPP, Jabber.
Oh.
That's the,
Isn't that what Dublin Core is meant for?
perhaps initially.
Okay.
Dublin Core is a very basic format that unfortunately became really much the core of Europeana, and they haven't been able to move very far from that. And so these formats that I'm talking about here are much more elaborate. Like, Lido is actually remarkably elaborate. And we're working actually together intimately with the people of Forth in Crete. That's an organization that is behind what's called the SIDOC conceptual reference model, if you've ever heard of that. And this conceptual reference model is something that they've been developing for more than a decade. It's an ISO standard, and what they're basically doing is trying to figure out all the different holes that you can put your data into from the cultural heritage domain. So the way they do this is they get together with people who have already recorded data for different things, like libraries, for archives, for lots of special interests. And they try to harmonize the way that these people are storing their data into the fields that the growing number of sort of fields and categories and classes that they're defining in this standard that should cover everything.
They try to make a common meaning for the notation.
Yeah, and there's also a means by which you can be more specific or less specific in the way you describe things. So, in other words, if you're able to do something, describe something really specific, and someone else cannot really describe it to that level, but they can describe it to a higher level, a less detailed level, then you can still do something with those two documents together, because you can always assume that it's part of the subclass as well. So, you know, so it's kind of a class mechanism. It's a long story, SIDOC CRM, but we will be
it sounds
using
like
that more and more.
dialecting. It sounds like dialects in a common language.
Yeah, in a sense it is, and they're doing this in what they call an empirical and scientific way, which means that they're not making up a standard out of the blue. The only way that they will add a category, a class, a property, a field, or whatever, to their conceptual reference model is if they talk to someone who is storing that information and it doesn't correspond with an existing thing that they already have. So they have week-long workshops with yet a new group from the libraries this time, or from someone else. Every half year or so they get together and they add perhaps a few properties, a few categories for this new client, and they also describe the linkage between the existing categories and what these people are storing, so that the whole thing can be harmonized in the end. And everyone agrees on how the sort of crosswalks between this sort of universal storage description, like the conceptual reference model, and everyone's specific case. Like, you have different things for genealogy, you have different things for, you know, there's quite a variety of different things that can be stored in a cultural heritage database.
But to say it like this, they don't make standards, they register used standards.
They're building a standard
Yeah.
that harmonizes with everything they can find. And they've been doing it for...
But are they also creating and thinking about new notations, or are they just researching what is already happening?
Their emphasis and their goal, their mission is to harmonize with what's there and to only use what's being already used. Rather than to just, I mean, what happens often in standards land is people get together around a table like this one, and they spend a week and they develop some sort of a standard, and then they walk out of the room and they say, yes, this is it, this is the ultimate. We had the brightest people in the room, we have a wonderful standard, and it gets stamped with this is the standard and nobody uses it. Happens quite often. So this is one thing that they didn't want from the very beginning. I'm sort of getting off track here. Anyway, so what we're doing as well is we're providing...
Did you go to an end?
Yeah, okay. We're providing also special things like deep zoom, virtual collections, video annotation. We're working now with a group that does locative media so that you can put cultural heritage at locations and go on a tour with your mobile phone. User-generated content stuff we're doing. In the future, we're going to move towards, like I was saying, the SciDoc CRM and full data management. So rather than sort of the Europeana model where the data flows towards Europeana and there's no way to get it back, we're going to be setting it up so that the data is managed in a culture hub and it can change. So in other words, feedback can come back. Yeah, and we're going to be interlinking the culture hubs into the culture cloud. And then the domain of metadata enrichment, that's going to be keeping us busy for a number of years to come. So our software stack, very quick, we work with sort of the cutting edge. We've built our platform on the cutting edge Play 2 framework, which is written in the Scala language. So we write our stuff in Scala. And it's based on an actor framework, so that it's a long story, but actors are sort of like independent little software
agents or something?
Agents in a sense, yeah. So it's the Play framework is based on it's basically an agent system. I'll go into that in a second, what we're doing with that further. We're using Groovy templates. In fact, we ported the Groovy library, or the Groovy templating library from Play 1 to Play 2, so we're a little famous for that in the community. It's based on searching with Solr and Lucene, just like Europeana. For persistence, we use MongoDB, and we're moving towards BaseX, which is an XML database. And like I said, the ingestion process done by the SIP creator is a standalone program that you can launch with Java Web Start.
Yeah, I was wondering, that SIP creator. When I hear SIP, I think about Session Initiation Protocol.
Yeah, this is Submission Information Package.
Oh, okay. It's, okay.
It's from another
but
set of terminology.
What does it?
Yeah, well, the idea, this comes from a model that was developed a number of years ago called OAIS, which
the
involves
Open Archive
yeah.
Okay.
Submission information package, distribution information package, and archive information package. Those are the sort of the three different phases of what happens to data sets. So that's also a long story I'm not going to go into. So, like I said, we have our platform is the Play framework, which is based on an actor framework. I happen to have a few years of experience working in multi-agent systems, like coincidence. And we're going to be using that strategy quite a lot. We're going to be creating agents for documents, for objects. So basically what you can do in an actor framework, software-wise, is you can attach sort of a living, breathing piece of code to a thing, and you can create millions of them, and they can all coexist. That's the whole idea behind an actor system. You can have so little active objects everywhere. So it's also just basically a different programming model. So what we're thinking of is an object, we're going to give it an agent. What's this agent going to do? Well, it's going to find out how this object can be improved. It's going to watch when this object is being observed, and it's going to just keep track of things. So an object might be introduced, an agent might be introduced to an object, and it might ask itself, who am I? Where am I? An object might not be well enough described in terms of who made it, where it exists. Often you have objects described by a piece of text. That's not enough. We need to know, is this a creation date? We need to know, is this the author, or is this the publisher? There's all sorts of things that have to be sort of extracted out, and it's not always separated out in these documents. So this is one of the things that this agent can do. It can ask people, is this my creation date, for example? So these agents are there to work to improve the objects. And there's one for each object, basically. So what else has what's happened during my existence? Suppose you are, suppose an agent has a text description. You can probably describe a creation date, an acquisition date, based on that text. And is there anything else that I should be connected to? Like if I have an author and I see a name, perhaps I should be able to link to the authority file for that name, so that I can find other people under that, or other objects that are related to that name. And it can search multilingually, because once you've got a URI to the actual thing, then you've got all the different labels in different languages.
So in fact they are social networking.
Yeah, so these agents,
Facebook for documents.
they're going to be looking for ways to connect up documents.
Okay.
They're not going to be making these decisions on their own. That's something to keep in mind. They're not intelligent agents. They're quite unintelligent. But what their job is to ask people things. So there's not only an agent for each object, but there's also an agent for each curator, for each person participating in the data improvement process. Now the idea is here that it's a little demotivational to open up a database of cultural heritage data, look up an object, make an improvement, save it, pick up the next object, make an improvement, save it. This kind of thing is not really fun to do. So it's not happening very much. Databases either just sit there, or somebody decides, oh man, we have to fix this. Let's hire someone in and spend 3 months fixing it, and then they just do it. But it happens very seldom, unfortunately, yeah?
Crowdsourcing, why not crowdsourcing?
That's, why not? Good reason. I mean, there are very good reasons to do it. It's just not quite easy enough to do. You have to do it in a very careful way. And these people don't really want their information touched like Wikipedia does. They're a little too careful about their data. So they would like this to be curated by people who are sort of assured to take it more seriously.
They're snobs, in other words.
Is the database persistent? Is that the word? That it stores every change?
Yeah.
Also, if you remove something, it actually stores the removement?
Yeah, it has to.
Okay.
Because these things, yeah, one of the main sort of core things is that everything has a unique identifier, so if you delete something, it has to be sort of marked as deleted. So, I mean, like I was saying, this improvement process, they want it to be curated, but it's very sort of hard to motivate people to do this well. And so the idea is to create an agent for a curator. You've got these objects that are all looking for improvements. What they will do is they will talk to agents. So you have your own agent if you're participating in the data improvement, and the object agents will come to you to ask questions. They will decide which questions to ask, and hopefully they'll improve their ability to ask the right question as time goes on. But your agent manages your participation. So if you go on vacation, your agent will discover that you're just not there, and it will turn away the other agents for the time being. And it should probably discover, for example, when you like to answer questions. It might be that you get in the morning and you like to do a few improvements and then get to your work. Or you might end off the day with some work. So this thing can start to anticipate what you like to do and make the work easier and make basically the process continuous. So once you start this up and get this platform set up, then data improvement, it's happening. Ever so slowly, perhaps, but it's happening. Whereas right now, things gather cobwebs, which is not what you want. So it understands when you're not around, it turns objects away, it handles the whole process of picking up an object, presenting it to a human, saying, is this the true about this object, taking that fact and putting it back in the database. So all the sort of tedious things about the process are taken care of by the agents. And basically what you have is you answer a number of questions and then you stop when you want to stop. And so this process is supposed to be continuous. And this kind of hybrid approach where the agents have some heuristics, they make good guesses, hopefully,